Hey everybody, Wendy Klinke with Blue Cat Studio. Welcome to another edition of Technique Tuesday. So before I get into what we're doing, because I want to prime my canvas with, or tone my surface with a background color, we're going to do that first and give it a little bit of drying time before we get going. So I'm grabbing just some basic tomato red, some kind of bright red. You know, any color will do, but we're kind of going with warm tones, so you may as well prime it with a warm tone. So I guess grab a big brush and just literally get a basic coating in there. And if it's not perfect, that's okay. I think I overdid it because last time my paper was so stinking thirsty that it tried to eat everything. Or it like, what am I trying to say? I don't know what I'm trying to say. So I'm trying to say that I didn't have, like, no matter what, it didn't seem to be able to get enough paint on. Okay. So now that I've primed this sucker or toned it red, I'm going to give it a chance to dry. Good evening, Miss Holly. How you doing? Okay, so I'm going to set this aside and just really quickly take care of my brush. Whoops. I think that's the last of the big brush we're going to need. I'd like to work just a little bit smaller. So go ahead and offload, basically like so, and rinse. Okay, so now that we've got the background, a lovely red color, going to give it a chance to dry naturally. I'll probably have to blast it anyways, but it gives you a chance to let your stuff dry too. So for composition, you know, there's a whole series of archetypes. And the one we're going to study today is called the diagonal, which basically means your composition is kind of at a diagonal. So in our case, what makes a great diagonal? What do you see all the time that's a diagonal in the great outdoors? Oh yeah, mountain, huh? You could even have a couple other mountains kind of flow in. Maybe some flowers or something. So that is kind of a natural version of that. So how about we do a mountainscape and we'll maybe throw some flowers on, get a little sunset going on, something. There may even be a horizon line in there, but it's going to kind of fade into the distance because this section right in here is going to be our sort of our prime focus. So I hope that makes sense. Now that you kind of have a quick heads up about what we're going to do, hopefully you've toned your canvas or your surface. Mine's just a piece of paper. Red. It doesn't have to be red. You could go way more traditional and do like a burnt orange or burnt sienna. Deco Americana makes a burnt orange, which is almost exactly the same as this. A little bit lighter and honestly a whole lot easier to work with. I used an Anita's Hobby Lobby color. Apparently I got way too much on. You could also go with like a cadmium red or a crimson. Now, I did not tone it with nique and magenta as much as I was very, very, very tempted to do so, simply because I'm trying to shy away from purples and quinacridone for a minute. I mean, I already know I'm going to lose that battle today, but I figured it was worth at least giving us a hint for something else. Okay. I'm just getting this brush out of the way of super red paint water, but that's no biggie. So I'm grabbing a purple, today it's a purple color pencil. It's actually a watercolor color pencil, does not matter. But I figured this one would leave pretty much no trace and might just kind of blend in. So if I'm going to do a diagonal, I think I'm going to just kind of roughly kind of just do a jiggly jaggly line that kind of comes across like so. Ooh, yeah, can't see that, can you? Because that is so intense. Well, there you go. You can sort of see it. And then maybe we'll do a little something along here just to kind of contain or continue that, you know, diagonal look, and then maybe a little sort of rounding. So again, it's not like just a straight, it's not just a, oh my gosh. No. All right, you know what? The permanent marker wins again. I'm just going to permanent marker this so you can see. And we'll just get good and cover it over. So there you go. That better show up. Yes. Okay. Now you can see what I'm talking about. So I'm going to give that a little blast since I was not counting on having to cover up black, but it's still no biggie. So this red background is pretty intense, right? So we'll probably use a lot of white to, you know, to mix in with our colors to kind of give it a little something. So if you have a Hauser Dark Green from Deco Art Americana, you can go ahead and grab that now if you like, if you're not feeling the mixing. And oops, I grabbed Plantation Pine. I keep grabbing Plantation Pine. Where's Hauser? Well, it doesn't matter. And you know, honestly, I don't even care what color you get because I generally like to mix my colors. So I'm going to mix my colors. Let's get ultramarine blue. Boops. A little bit of yellow. And for giggles, we're going to want to tone that. I might even use some, we'll probably use some magenta because magenta is the bomb. All right, so I'm just pouring some colors out, right? So quinacridone magenta, we always use that. I cannot help myself. I apologize if you don't like magenta, but it's so wonderful. So here we go again. We have the CMY, cyan, magenta, yellow. I prefer to use those as my primaries as opposed to red, yellow, blue. Although we're using it all today, so it's cool. All right. So let's get some basic colors going on in here. Let's do the foreground with just sort of a base green. So I'm going to take some blue over here, a little bit of magenta. Oh, that was a lot of magenta over here. Maybe a little bit more. Bit of yellow. I'm just going to kind of make a mushy. Oh yeah, a mushy green. Is that a pretty green? No. Is that a natural green? Why, yes, it is. And we will go ahead and kind of get this guy just sort of kind of just placed in. And I might grab a little bit of white and just sort of pull it in here to start to add some difference and interest. And again, you can just kind of place your brush. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm kind of also trying to get a little bit of like variety of color. Little bits of red peek out. It is okay. It really works fine. And so now for behind that, we'd like to get maybe a little bit more teal in there. So I'm going to grab a little bit of the mermaid tail, a little touch of the blue, a little bit more blue, and just a little bit, and again, a little bit of magenta to kind of smushify it. It's a technical term, my friends. And we'll kind of bring that back here. Okay, a little bit more teal. We'll just kind of create another wandering line along there. Hey there, Christy. Good to see ya. Okay, so now we've actually got 2 bits there, which is awesome. And I think we could create even a little bit more going on in the background here. So I'm going to take some blue, some of that ultramarine blue. No rinsing my brush, a little bit of the teal, and a little bit of white. I'm going to start to create kind of colors that fade a bit into the background. And so I think I'm going to bring something that kind of comes out like so. And notice, because we're kind of using similar colors to mix all these, despite the fact that they're not all blues or all greens, they kind of fit together as a family. And on this particular piece, I want to cover up my black permanent marker lines just because those aren't actually pretty. But if there's little bits of red peeking through and showing, it's kind of interesting, right? We like interesting. We really like interesting. And then I want to get even, take a little bit more of the cobalt or ultramarine, whatever color that is, a little bit more white, a little bit of teal, kind of get whiter and lighter here. Just kind of create like a misty kind of something here. And again, you can kind of create these shapes however you like. It really doesn't matter. But look at how like you can just quickly kind of get some color in there and it doesn't really matter. Smushify, yes, that's my new word. Mountains to make, oh, so Holly says the mountains to make up the diagonal is very fitting for you, being the nature girl I am. Why, yes, absolutely. Do a little bit more of the misty mountain in there, just sort of peeking. And then maybe I'll even, just since I'm here and have some of that light color, use a little bit of that to kind of add a little highlight into this guy. Just kind of keeps it interesting. Because again, we don't want any of these colors to get too flat. So without rinsing my brush, maybe even grabbing a smidge of white, and come back into that middle green that was here and just start to add a little bit of the light. And again, you don't have to be super discerning. Just kind of trying to keep it interesting, give it a little bit of motion. And grab a little bit more yellow, kind of come in, just mixing right back into that mush mash that I just had, a little more teal. Now I want to get more vibrant with my green, a little bit more spring green, as if we've like, happened upon a fresh meadow. And we'll kind of bring that meadowy color right along in here. A little more yellow to that. And we'll maybe kind of come along here, keep it narrow, and then bring this guy kind of like so. Maybe a little something in this zone here. And then I'm going to get kind of a little bluish green. So add some more teal to that. So because we're now not using all these other colors, we're getting a little bit more intense kind of colors, and maybe just kind of add some mishmash of color in here. And so, in fact, many of these sort of archetype concepts, they really are better applied to landscapes than they even are of like subject matter like people and objects. But you can also, apply them to people and objects, but sometimes it's harder to imagine, a diagonal shaped person, but it could be, how you juxtapose certain things. So now we've just kind of added, and look at all that red that peeks through, because we've just like really taken advantage of the whole concept of complementary colors. That red just goes pow in your face. And if I don't even cover it all up, it's already kind of powerful. And the little bits of red in here, it's almost like I've added an outline without adding an outline, just by neglecting to put paint in a certain place, which I kind of love that, right? So now maybe we'll come in and grab a little bit more yellow while we're here. Just kind of grabbing, oh, make sure you can see. And yeah. So I want to add just a touch of yellow in this zone here. I'm going to offload my brush. I have way too much green on there. I want it to be a little more yellow, a little less army green. All right, so come in and grab some yellow. Here we go. Now we'll just kind of work that color here. So there'll be a little bit of green in it to just take it down so it's not pure, straight, crazy, insane yellow. If that's out of the tube, that's kind of the toned down version. And if we pick up little bits, I'm going to actually also take my largest brush and turn it on its side, so just the corner is kind of laying some color. And I'm going to think that we've maybe got like some yellow wildflowers kind of in this zone. So I'm just going to sprinkle kind of here, maybe a couple highlights in here. I'm hoping that I manage to maintain some of these red bits here. Sometimes I get really carried away. I just have so much fun. So I'll try and, so now I've taken the brush from this to this, and I'm kind of placing almost just kind of like drifts of wildflowers. You can't really see the actual flowers, but you're starting to see the highlights. But up here, because we're closer, they're a little bit more bloppy. That's a technical term, right? Bloppy. All right, so now with that color, I'm going to grab a little bit of the magenta, offload a smidge, and I'm going to blend it in here to create kind of like a rusty color. See how that's sort of a rusty orange? And now take that along, let's see here, this guy. Oops, I want a little bit more orange. So I'm going to grab just a smidge more of that magenta into the yellow. And kind of bring like a little rusty something kind of in on this mountain a little bit. And then maybe let it kind of come here and sort of crest this way. So it's kind of fun, it's very freeing to use a big brush because you can't focus on the details. You gotta look at it big picture and be like, okay, how do I place some color? How do I sort of communicate this concept without having to go into full detail just by dabbing the color in? So now we've got these sort of like, so here we go. I'm trying to explain this. So when you're like zoomed out way far away and you see a field of flowers, oftentimes the green and like the pink or red or orange or yellow kind of blend together, and it almost gives like a rust colored kind of feel, as opposed to being able to see the pink directly or the yellow directly. And so that's kind of what effect is happening there. So from here, I'm going to offload, and really the point is to get rid of most of that yellow In fact, I think I'd like to rinse it off completely. I may come back and like just grab some yellow just for fun later because, you know, that's what happens sometimes. But I want to move into more of like the blues. Okay. And I'd like to add a little bit of cliff right in here, and then maybe a little bit of I think I want a sharper differentiator in here too. So we're gonna get some teal and some white. We're gonna mix a much more vibrant tone here. And I think we're gonna kind of bring that guy here to kind of create a highlight. Whoops, again, I wanna try to maintain little bits of that red peeking through. So it's just little bits of color. I think I want a few bits and shades in here too, just a little bit. So that kind of like with a little bit of blue here, and then that also that teal pale blue, which is just literally a teal mixed with white. I feel like this kind of holds this in place. Again, that's my intuitive self talking, but that's kind of how it feels to me. And so I'm doing my best here to kind of explain what's going on. Sometimes my brain is just, can be a very intuitive painter where I just feel color. And so it takes a minute at times to actually be able to explain what I'm doing and why I'm doing it and find the words for it. So just adding a little bit more highlight along here. And again, I'm trying to keep it loose, just kind of placing color, line, shape. So you kind of have layers. And now we've got, we've got a little bit more of like a differentiator between the close hill and the far hill. And so I may even sink these more into the purpley tones as we kind of build out a sky. But it's really great to get a good kind of a base coat placed in there. Christy says the red coming through with a red sky makes me think of reflections of a sunset. Yeah, so I do hope to get a sunset in here. And you know, it's funny because the very first paint party I ever went to just as a student, like donkeys years ago, where it was kind of like all the things I knew about painting just sort of like clicked in like the weirdest way. We actually toned the back of the canvas red. I was like, whoa. I mean, it was so cool. So let's do some sky. Should we make it really vibrant? Do we want to use some crimson here or some quinacridone? Let's do that. Quinacridone. Boop. A little bit of yellow. Warm it up a bit. I need a lot more quinacridone, don't I? There we go. And we're going to grab some white. Okay, so now we've got this beautiful kind of warmish color, and I'm going to just kind of bring that in this area here. So some of my red is going to start to get covered up, but if I don't manage to cover all of it, that's okay. But I'm just getting a little bit of that in here. Now, I feel like I want to go a little more purpley, so I'm going to grab some teal, some quinacridone, mix it together. So there's my deepest purple, right? If I come over here and take it down a notch and plumb it up, we got that. Plum. I'm gonna grab some white. And voila, there we go. That's pretty. And then I'm gonna grab some more quinacridone. There, okay, see, so what I've done is I've just created like a range of colors for myself to play with. And I wanna kind of take that last and latest, this guy here, kind of bring it maybe at the base here. Some of the lighter can kind of start to come in this zone here. Again, I always end up with purples. I cannot help myself. Somehow you guys inspired me to start going into the purples, and now purple just happens every time. So my deeper purple up top, but just also letting it kind of blend and smush. And a little bit more white in to kind of keep it from getting too dark. A little bit of that in here. Again, am I super, concerned about having full coverage on this red sky? Not really. So I think it's going to be kind of fun. Chrissy says, love it when things come together. I know, isn't that weird? I mean, I love it too. And sometimes it's like I try to always reiterate this, the whole idea of trust the process, because so often we don't, and it can get really scary. All right, so I'm going to kind of get in here into this deep purpley color. I'm going to add a little bit of teal. I want to kind of start to sink some of this guy here back a little bit. I love some of that bright color that came in there, but I feel like it's become too dominant. So I'm going to just try and take it back a little. So a little teal. Sometimes I think I got my color mixture going and then I'm like, nope, not quite. So again, my edges, we don't have to worry about those because that's all going to get pulled up in the tape. All right, now let's add a little, I think we want a little sunset here. We've got some fun colors. Maybe I'll smush a little bit of this blue in here to kind of help this guy recede a little bit too. I want to add almost like a misty look. I'm trying to figure out how I want to do that. There we go, just a little bit more white. Maybe a little bit more white. Tilt this guy so I can check and see what sort of glare we have or don't have. There we go. Let's keep the mountains a little misty. And so by bringing more of sort of the bluish purple into the sky. Oops, look, we got a lot of purple in there. Whoops, tricking the angles. It helps it become a little bit more aligned with the sky as opposed to the mountain itself. So now this is kind of really in the foreground. Holly says, top right corner looks kind of blurry. Is it the camera or the project? It is the project. It is the project. I just got a crazy blend going on there. I'm going to rinse my brush again because I want to get rid of all signs of blue for a minute. Oh, I smudged blue. Whoopsie daisies. Here's where I feel like I actually would like to work with some red instead of magenta for just a second. Or better yet, you know what? Let's go with some tangerine. I'm going to get some tangerine. It's a little bit of a low chroma. Shoot, I need to mix it up. Shake, shake, shake. Shake, shake, shake. Shake your paint jar. Shake your paint jar. I'm just going to pour it right here on top of my prior mix because it's dry. I'm going to get a little white going. A little white. A little tangerine. And again, that's for coverage. I'll steal a little quinacridone to throw it in there. A little yellow to warm it up. Sometimes that tangerine just kind of gives you that kind of advantage. It's almost like I've remixed that same color, but I needed to get a little bit of the white in there so that it would actually come over. So then I'm just going to kind of start to place a little bit of orangey color in here. It's going to need multiple coats for sure. Grab a little bit more yellow and kind of blend into the edge there. We get a little bit of that yellowy kind of in here in the center, kind of coming out. You can kind of keep it loose, with just those sort of lines radiating out. All right, I'm not getting the colors I want. I'm going to try some of the red here. Feel like I don't have a path to the color that I have in my head, which always means it's time to break out another bottle of something. All right, so grabbing some red here. A little bit of that yellow. Maybe I just have to go with fluorescence. I feel like that's sometimes the only way to do things. Blend some of that orange in here. And I know it's a little weird going right over all that purple, but I wanted that sort of purple tone happening. Offload some of my paint. And we'll come back in for some more quinacridone. All right, buddy, don't fail me now. Yellow. Quinacridone. Eek. Maybe I need to do quinacridone and red instead. Maybe that would be the better trick. This just feels so muddy. I don't know, you guys. It feels muddy. It's driving me crazy. I don't like it. I just want to wipe it off. It's okay, though. It's okay, though. I'm going to wipe it off. All right, so this is me resisting using more colors. I think I'm just going to go for it because sometimes you just cannot get a hot pink without using a hot pink. So closest one is apparently a Craft Smart. I may regret my decision to use a lower end paint, but that's okay. Let's get a little hot pink in here. I think a little hot pink is just gonna zhuzh this the way we like it. And I'm gonna blast it too because I'm starting to push wet paint around. Chrissy says she loves the tangerine combo. Yeah, tangerine. So I've been trying to make February the month of tangerine. I'm thinking that we're gonna have to make, I mean, February is kind of more like pink. So maybe tangerine is like a little white. I'm gonna go a little white to kind of give that a little oomph. So maybe tangerine is our March color. I'm not sure. Here we go. So now we're just gonna start to kind of blend a little bit more lightness, kind of right up into this yellow and tangerine. I know I'm sort of undoing all that tangerine we just did, but I think I can bring some of it back. It was getting too dark and too muddy, and it was not making me happy. So then with a hot pink, I can grab some quinacridone magenta right here, and that'll sort of amp that color. There we go. I'm always amazed at like when you, whoops, stop. That used to be the alarm to go pick my kiddo up from soccer, but we're on a little winter break from soccer. Okay. So again, just adding a little bit more of that color back into the sky. Some of the color that started to get muddy, just add it back. But it does probably feel a little bit muddy over there. Or it did do. Hopefully we're coming back from that a little bit. So a little bit more pink in the sky. A little bit more pink, a little bit here and there. Just a few kisses of really vibrant pink. And then a bit more quinacridone and hot pink. Eek. Okay, so we've got a pretty vibrant sky. I'm good with that. And now to add a couple more flowers in here because I would like to get some colors. Oy, oy, oy. More quinacridone. Almost need a new palette. Let me grab something out of the trash. All right, so here we go. Ooh, gunge. So quinacridone again, because we've already used up our entire supply. I'm going to take the hot pink, just kind of move it over, and I know I'm going to need some white. So all this is dry, so I have no compunction about just going right over it. So chunk of that, and let's mix the quinacridone, the white, and the pink together. That makes a pretty color. I would like a little bit more. I'd like it to pop a little bit more, so I'm adding just a bit more of that fluorescent pink. There we go. Okay. And because I've got that white in there, I'm hoping that we've got some pretty heavy duty, some pretty good coverage. So I'm going to kind of come in and, especially up close here, add some bigger kind of blobs of pink. And notice I'm just kind of using the corner of my brush, trying to maintain some of that red that's back there because we really love that red in the background. And so the bigger bits are really going to be occurring up front. Like if you're going to go big, make the few bigger pieces like right up here. You could even do like a couple of really chunky pieces right there in the corner. Ooh, look at that little bit of quinacridone that's peeking. I'm going to get some more of that in there. Maybe not. It's like it's snuck in. Okay. And then we can kind of come up here. And as we go out here, we're going to make tinier and tinier dots. It's going to get smaller, maybe a little darker. I think I want a little bit more of this to kind of come out this way, but it's going to start to be smaller. A couple of little kisses in here. And again, these almost just become little tiny lines where I just gently place an almost dry brush or brush down with just a little bit of pigment on it. Just placing little bits. Because again, the flowers here are probably also happening over here where we've got that kind of orangey tone. Oh, I said I wanted to do a rock face. think I'm not going to do that since we've got so much going on already, and I could spend like all day doing this, which would be really fun. And I'm just going to kind of do a little bit more along there, add a little kiss of pink so that you can tell there's a whole another bit happening. Maybe edge a little bit here. But you notice how you just add a few little kisses of edges, little bits, and you suddenly feel like not only do you have amazing flowers sort of in your foreground, but then there's the same thing as repeating in the background. And we can do little bits in here. And so the goal of this was really to show the concept of a diagonal. I know we've sort of gone to town with flowers and all the things, but I haven't drawn a single flower. Everything is just blobs of paint, right? And again, I feel like that's half of what painting is blobs of paint, is treating the brain or teaching the brain and the eye to see blobs of paint as whatever it is that we choose them to be. And Christy says, I would have never thought of using hot fluorescent pink. Yeah, that's my favorite trick in the book is hot pink. Let's see about a little bit more of this color that we just used in the sky. I feel like it will just make a couple little nice bits in here. Maybe a little kiss along in here just to kind of add a little sky glow. I'm trying to keep this bit much thinner coat so that that blue, underneath kind of starts to show through. Again, still trying to respect those little bits of red that are peeking through. But, oh, yes, see, there you go. Now those mountains have sunk properly back. So they're the deeper blue here, and with that slight, almost purple reflection from the sky, that helps that recede way back. Now, I feel like this guy right here is kind of owning the show. So I would like to add just a little something more to this edge here. And that's just me kind of mentally zooming out and looking at like where we at. Oh, look, I added some more magenta to my sky too. That was fun. Okay, I'm going to rinse the sky off and drop it, but luckily not on my project. So I do want to pop this. So there's a couple ways to do it. We, of course, can just mix a green, which I think is what I'm going to do. But if you happen to have something like this guy, this is a phthalo yellow green, or this gorgeousness, which is a brilliant yellow green. This is like body butter. I just want to smear it all over. Never mind. That sounds horrible, but I'm like, I just get a little excited. So some yellow, some mermaid tail. And so this yellow I use, it's almost the only yellow I ever use, is the daffodil yellow from Folk Art, simply because it's such a wonderful, bright color that I can get the truly pure, like vibrant tones that I'm looking for. Whereas a lot of other yellows tend to kind of have, they tend to be too, I don't know, orangey, or they don't always mix well and kind of make good greens and make good oranges. They don't do. I'm gonna add a little bit more yellow to that mermaid tail mixture to create a spring green, almost like a sour apple. Just a little bit there. Just, we want to pop that. So, because again, I'm thinking contrast, I'm thinking our lights and our darks, but we also don't want it to look just like a straight like line. So I'm going to bring kind of bits of that in here. Yeah, I got a little bit too green before. And I'm going to also then take a little bit of white and pop this up to a lighter value, which waters it down a little bit, but by keeping that kind of yellow in there, it still keeps it pretty warm. And we'll kind of put a few bits of, again, I'm trying to preserve a little bit of that red, a little bit of that background. Little bits in here, a couple bits. Just little places, little kisses. Kind of liven it up and give it that spring look. And by layering a whole bunch of like greens and slightly different tones, it gives you that sense of lightness and shadows that you would get by seeing like a whole plethora of plants and whatnots. of plants and whatnots. Yep, that's a technical term. We've always got a technical term for that. Let's see if I can add even just a smidge more white. Again, I'm even pulling a few lines down just to kind of, I don't know, create like sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm not sure what the word is I'm looking for. That's okay though. Bring a little into the foreground so that it's not completely weird. Now I'm going to tune one more time, grabbing some of that mermaid tail without rinsing my brush. Just soften that a little bit. I got a little overzealous in a few spots. Okay, I think if I continue to work this guy, it's going to get like crazy on me. But I do tend to always go a little extra. So Holly says, I like that tweaking with the sour apple color. Yeah, isn't that funny how it now just goes pow and it comes really to the foreground and allows a lot of the rest of this to kind of fade backwards. So really our eye is now very focused on this. I have a splotch of color I didn't intend. And Christy says the illusion of flowers, of things, is such a big part of painting. Yeah, isn't that crazy? Like illusion is 99%. Yeah, okay. So, I mean, if I were to keep going on this, you know, I see a few spots that I would probably like to fix at some point. But I think in the idea that we're just trying to whip out a quick 30 to 40 minute demonstration of the concept of a diagonal, I'm hoping that we've more or less kind of gotten that. We've gotten some great color and maybe you've learned a few weird mixing tricks from me. And I will see you guys on Thursday. Yes, Thursday for our lunch and paint. Enjoy. Hope you guys have a great night. And I will see you shortly. And of course, if you're catching the replay on this, feel free to ask questions. I do try to monitor the chat. And even those of you who are here with me live, please feel free to ask more questions. And I will come back to you best I can. Have a good one, guys. Bye.